Therapy Roulette, consent to vent. Trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy Roulette, consent to vent. If you don't have problems, then you're likely repressing shit and you should find a therapist who's not me.
All right, I'm here with Paul Calcote. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are, Michelle.
All right, great. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining me on the internet.
It is so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Of course. Welcome to Therapy Roulette. Let's dive right in. Are you in therapy right now?
I am. I see my counselor at least once a month, but I've been thinking just how 2020 has been going. I probably need to see him a little more.
Yeah.
The church that I work at, we have a pastor / counselor there, and I see him at least once a month. But I have been thinking about seeing him even more. This probably is about to be an understatement, but 2020 has been a rough year. So I have been thinking and praying through, should I see him more often? But it has been virtual and it works.
Yeah. Does he do that because he's at the church where you work at the church also, right? So does he do it for money, or is it more like an exchange of like, oh, we both work here?
Oh, yeah. Since I work here, I get it for free. So that's like a bonus.
That's awesome. Yeah. Why not up that frequency?
I know, you're exactly right.
That's so nice. I was in therapy until recently. And then I think a month or two ago, I quit and I miss it so much. I'm like ready to go back. Oh. So it's good to have in 2020 for sure.
Yes, indeed. Because this has been a year to remember or a year to forget. It's depending on your perspective.
Yeah. Definitely. What's like the general topic that brings you to counseling every month? Like, what are you working on right now?
Like right now, it's kind of our venting sessions.
Okay.
With being a pastor, you're with people at their lowest and you hear a lot of what's going on with them. And to me, therapy is healthy, not just for me and my emotional and mental state, but it's healthy for my relationship with my wife. I don't have to like dump everything on her. Of course, I tell her some things to keep that bond, but a lot of it is dealt with in counseling where I don't like overwhelm her with all these like passive problems. So the latest thing we was talking about, was like job. We talk a lot about my job. It was job related and just how I was in one position I really didn't like. And then that was like last year. And then looking full circle this year, I'm in a position that I want. So it's kind of like a lot of connecting the dots and just expressing gratitude and, know that God has a plan and he works things out. So it's been some successful sessions so late.
That's nice. You can kind of unleash all like anything that's happening at your job onto someone who probably understands it pretty well too, because he's also at the same place. Yeah, that's so nice. And you're doing it out of consideration for your wife. I love that.
Yes, and because I was introduced to Christian counseling period when I was in college and had some bouts of depression then. And I was like, well, it worked then. And sometimes I go not because something is necessarily wrong with me, but I just want to make sure everything is right with me. I feel like counseling is a healthy thing, and oftentimes, just from my personal amateur opinion, we shouldn't wait until something is just until the house is like blown up before we go and see somebody. So I kind of go out of like a routine and maintenance now.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're like doing that pretty regularly too. That's so cool that like you're doing it out of consideration for your wife to better yourself and to just like regularly give yourself like a mental health check-in. I like that a lot.
Yeah, most definitely. It has really helped out her relationship. Like I say, there's something I share with her just so we can have that bond, but I don't want to come and just mentally dump everything on her. So I feel like just having the safe place with the counselor to kind of let out some things. And like, because the thing about counseling is this, I don't go there and like, hey, fix me. It's really a partnership. Like, give me some things to work on, some things to think about, get some scripture and pray for me. And I have a part too, got to work through some things and like some stuff like exercise forgiveness and letting stuff go. So it can really put me in a better place mentally and emotionally. So yeah.
That's awesome. Is he like a licensed counselor or does he like volunteer? What's the counselor role for him?
He's a pastor, but he has his credentials. Okay. I forgot the letters, but he does have the letters behind his name.
Some acronym, yeah.
Right.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that it's so important. Like, does your wife also see some kind of counselor, or does she just like kind of deal with her own mental health in some other way?
Great question. She kind of deals with it in her own way. But of lately, she has been talking about what it would look like if maybe we went to counseling together, maybe not like mental health, but like as a relationship. Like once again, using that metaphor, not waiting till, things have blown up, but just out of maintenance and just being proactive with our relationship. But we haven't made a decision on that yet. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Maybe like a couples counseling, or sometimes like she could go to your counselor on her own, and just like having both of you involved could really broaden what you're working on,
I agree. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it myself. I feel like especially with quarantine and the pandemic, everyone's relationships are very stressed. So it's good to like think about these things. Yes,
because at one point we both was like working from home, and we're in an apartment, so she'll be on a Zoom call in the living room. I'll be on a Zoom call in the kitchen, and when the other person gets too loud, we'll kind of look over at each other and like, hey, can you quiet down? So yes, the pandemic has done what it's done.
Yeah, but you're not both working from home all the time now.
Right. She's back. She's a teacher. And so she's has half her class that participates. She goes into work, but half the class participates on Zoom and the other half participate in person. And I'm back in person at the church, just practicing social distance and a mask and all that fun stuff.
So you live in Texas, correct? In Houston?
Yes, Houston, Texas.
Very nice. So I feel like, in Texas, I've heard a lot more schools are like somewhat back in session, and a lot more people are able to go back to work. I feel like because there's more space in Texas, people are able to adjust to like normal life a little bit more.
Yes, we were adjusting just fine. And then it was like an uptick in the cases. So my wife was talking that maybe when the students go home for Thanksgiving break, they're having decisions right now of thinking about not returning. Then even some like our colleges are having those same discussions where when the college students go back home, that they may not return until the new year because of the uptick in cases. So I'm crossing my fingers because things was kind of getting normalized, but here we go again.
Yeah, I feel like as a country, we're really not progressing. So we'll see what happens. But it's good, like you've had a little bit of normalcy for a time, so that like, mentally you could have a little bit of like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be, even if we do have to go back a few steps.
Yeah. And like with my counseling, I didn't learn this in counseling, but one of the things that really helped me with my mental and emotional health that I do with my wife is like intentional check-ins. Like, so on a weekly basis, well, not weekly, we need to get back to that, but on a weekly basis, we'll just kind of sit down and I'll say, how are you doing? And like, how are you doing? Like for real. I say, how you doing physically? Have you been getting your water intake? She don't like to drink a lot of water. So I ask about that. And then she'll turn it back on me and say, well, have you been getting your sleep? Because sometimes I can stay up late working on different things and reading, etc. And I say, how are you doing spiritually? Time in the word and time in the prayer. How are you doing emotionally? Have you been stressed out or worried about anything? So that's one like non-counseling thing that really helps out with my mental and emotional health.
Yeah, I think that's great. Is she also down for it? Are you both like on the same page? Like, yeah, we should do a somewhat weekly check-in and see where we both are at.
Yeah, she loves it. Like, she kind of reminds me like, hey, we haven't had a check-in lately. And so
that's good. I would love to do that with my boyfriend, because I feel like it's hard to really get to like, how are you actually feeling? How are you really doing? Don't just tell me like, how was your, 8 hours at work today?
Exactly, because a lot of time I'm in Southern culture, this with this hospitality thing, we can say, how are you doing? And we'll say, oh, I'm good, and you, and so we really like to practice that, like slow down, how you're really doing. And I also do that with the college students and the young adults that I minister to as well. And really, so another cool thing that really helps me out mentally and emotionally, got me thinking when you asked that question, is I do this thing called Vent Joy, which is part of our check-ins. I saw it on Instagram where it said, instead of like venting about our complaints, what if we vented about our joy? So some things I would do with her, just ask her like, all right, so what has brought you joy this week? And then we kind of go back and forth. And if you don't mind, Michelle, may I ask you, what are some things that have brought you joy this week? May I ask you that?
Sure. Yeah. I love the idea of venting joy. It's such a foreign concept to me. I like it as a spin on like venting about things that are driving you insane,
Right.
If I want to vent about joy, I mean, I've launched this podcast 2 months ago, so it's been like consuming me. I've been working on it nonstop. but it is bringing me a lot of joy because it's like it's a creative representation of what I want to achieve, and like reaching out to people who I may or may not have known before and connecting with them and broadening like the mental health conversation and making it funny when I can. So the podcast is bringing me joy, and just the fact that I'm healthy and safe. And even though life is like frozen in time a little bit with the pandemic, I can't really complain. I feel very lucky.
That is so cool. Like, it's one of the things I love about like a side benefit of this vent joy is when people are saying it, like it brings me joy to see other people talk about their joy. And some things that brought me joy here in Texas, the weather has been good. Like I can walk from my car to I can walk from the parking lot to my office without sweating. I can wear long sleeve. Had a chance to FaceTime my parents the other day. So those are a few things that brought me joy. And then just, letting my creative juices flow as I'm preparing for podcasts or being interviewed on other podcasts. So those are some things that brought me joy. So vent joy is like another like extra thing that really helps me out mentally and emotionally. Just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to steal that idea, the venting joy and the weekly intake with your significant other. I think those are great like concepts and tools for keeping your mental health in check. That's awesome.
Yes.
I wanted to talk to you because you mentioned you've had some kind of issue with food addiction in the past. Do you want to talk about what do you think food addiction is? How would you define it?
I guess give some context to that. I faced a depression in 2014 when I moved from Mississippi to New Orleans. It was just a lot of change. My dad is a pastor, and so when I went to New Orleans, I found a new church. It was my first time calling another person pastor, and in a different state. And I love New Orleans. But when I was in Mississippi, if you listen to the news, you only hear about the bad stuff. But New Orleans was a great place. And so, make a long story short, my bills doubled and my income was cut in half. And so all of those things just kind of really put me in a funk. And
For sure,
I ran. Yeah. And Michelle, I ran to food because as a Christian, it's like, well, I can't, run to drugs, can't run to alcohol. So I ran to food, which is kind of ironic there, because the same way that people can abuse alcohol or abuse drugs, they can also abuse food as well. And so I remember it like it was yesterday, the three closest place, because I went down there for seminary, which is a school for pastors. It was Popeyes, Cane's, and Taco Bell. And I kind of lived there. It was kind of my holy trinity, if you will. I went to those three places on a consistent basis. And once again, just with my depression, I kind of ran to food. I would constantly overeat. And so that's kind of how my food addiction looked, and gained some weight. So yeah, when you run to food out of boredom and to cope with, I think that's what a food addiction looked like, speaking as an amateur that has struggled with it.
Yeah, no, I can understand what you're talking about. Just like I've had depression in the past. I've definitely like been a binge eater where like I'm eating for the sake of eating and not even like hungry or,
Right.
realizing why I'm eating. So I can understand from my own experience. Yeah,
most definitely. And from time to time, I try to creep back up, and I'm like, all right, I'm full. All right, put the fork down, put the spoon down. And in all honesty, just being transparent here, like that kind of flared up this week. We got some news at our church that our pastor was stepping down, which means like, oh, what are we going to do? Like the other staff that's there, and it's kind of put us in a flux. And I remember I left work, went and got an Oreo pie, brought it home and enjoyed it, but I didn't overindulge. But it's just funny how, when things happen, all right, let me just find this comfort in food. And I don't think nothing is wrong with eating, but when we overeat to the point that, we gain a lot of weight, I think this can be unhealthy. Then it's all interrelated, because as you're gaining weight, at least I know, say personally, that affect you negatively, mentally and emotionally. And it's kind of like a cycle. It's like, oh, well, I'm down, so I'm going to eat. I gain this weight, so now I'm depressed. And so it's like this unhealthy cycle that I have to put in work to break.
Yeah, like sometimes a lot of people who eat to cope with emotions, like they'll just kind of bury themselves in food or sugar or like whatever their vice is for food choices, and they won't ever like deal with those emotions, or they won't ever try to process them or understand them. So it's kind of like an escapism that could just keep hurting you in like a vicious cycle.
Yes, most definitely. And that's the beautiful part of therapy, where as we're talking through those things, it's like, oh, I didn't even connect the dot like that. And it's like, oh, maybe I need to, feel what I feel and feel those emotions when I feel like, I want to eat, and why am I feeling this way? And so, yeah.
Yeah. So when your pastor said he was going to step down and you got an Oreo pie, and then did that help you feel better, or were you like angry at yourself? Like, what was the outcome of the Oreo pie?
Oh, in the moment, it was good.
Yeah.
And then the next day I ate it again. But as I was eating it again, I was like, you know what? This is too much. So I didn't even I threw the rest away, because it wasn't from a place of moderation. It was a place from, I am running to this because I feel like this. And so I was able to throw it away. And I was heavy on the self-care. I'm an avid believer of self-care. So I was heavy on the self-care Friday, and what my routine looks like. I try to get some sunlight. My wife bought me a Fitbit so I can, kind of monitor my health. So I get my steps in. I listen to other podcasts. I make sure I slept in. I went downtown, ate at a nice restaurant, but didn't overeat. So it was something to look forward to, and then just kind of explored Houston. So Friday, I was heavy on the self-care after such a mentally and emotionally taxing week.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you have a lot of other coping strategies that you can go to, but sometimes maybe like something really indulgent, really like sugary, like an Oreo pie. That's like, oh, that's the really promising thing. It looks really good in my eyesight, but then it's not really going to help you overall.
Exactly, especially coming into Thanksgiving, which I know that I'm going to naturally eat more desserts, because there's going to be a lot of desserts there that I don't normally buy. And so I was like, you know what, this is not the best time to be eating Oreo, because, more than likely you may eat a little more and have more intake during Thanksgiving. So yes, I do have those other coping mechanisms. One thing that's been helping me out too, once again, I think everything is in moderation, but I've been watching two things on Netflix. One is like 101, and it's basically not a remake, but they reruns of this show that I watched when I was in high school. And it's almost like when you're watching reruns, it's almost like time travel, where I see these episodes and I remember where I was at that moment when I saw it. So that's been kind of healthy for me. Then I also been binging Dave Letterman. Just as a podcaster, I want to keep learning. Like, I'm only 6 months in, and so I just see how he'll do interviews. So those are like two things that I guess cope with, but it does help me out, put me in a good place, whether it's watching something for the sake of nostalgia or watching something for the sake of improvement. So being intentional with my TV intake. Yeah,
that's really a smart balance, to watch something like, oh, this will make you feel like a little warm and fuzzy because it's a throwback and you're familiar with it. Or Dave Letterman, who's like someone you might aspire to or want to emulate a little bit. Are you watching like his late show episode reruns?
It's my next guest needs no introduction.
Okay, so that's like, is that a newer thing that he's doing?
Yeah, it came out maybe a couple of months ago. It's 2 seasons in, and so he'll he'll interview like some of the most famous people that need no introduction, like Obama or Tina Fey or Jay-Z and people like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like Dave Letterman's like crazy beard he has going on now. Right. He's really rocking the quarantine look.
Yes, it's a quarantine Santa look.
That's cool. I like how you're working on your interview skills too. Very impressive. Your food addiction started when you like had a big life change. It sounds like you moved cities, and it sounds like your job also changed. So was that like kind of spurned at that moment? Like you kind of went to food in an unhealthy way, or was it something you had done in the past but never really to that extent before?
Ooh, and I'll honestly, like, weight has been something I struggle with throughout college. Even before that, I remember I was on the chubbier side, and then 8th grade I started working out, and so high school was good, and then college hit, and once again just a lot of change and culture shock, and I don't have to go to bed at 9 or 10 or 11. I can stay up, and if I stay up, I can eat. Yeah. And so it's kind of been like a constant thing that every now and then will try to rear its ugly head, like last week with the Oreo pie. So one of those things, just knowing my triggers and trying to find other ways to cope with it in a positive way.
Yeah. And you also had mentioned that you have had depression or experienced depression before. And I feel like that really goes along with food addiction or like unhealthy habits. So I know from my own life, I've been depressed off and on, and I've had like some weight fluctuations, but there's like a time in my life in high school where I just went to food as like, you know, all I have is food and no one else. Like I didn't have friends really. So I felt like very like, I guess, addicted to food and also like unhealthy with exercise routines. So I felt really lost at that time in my life, and my weight and my healthy habits were all over the place. And I just felt really like lost as a person, you know, just like eating potato chips until 2 a.m., passing out from the salt intake, waking up, going to school, not being happy because I felt like shit. Like I didn't know how to deal with that. I was, you know, a kid in high school.
Yeah. Hashtag relatable. Like, yeah. I get that.
Especially like the insomniac tendency to stay up late and just be like, oh, I'm going to stay up late and keep eating. I'm going to watch the show at 2 a.m. I don't know. Because when you're coming to be a person, like you're coming out of adolescence, no one's really telling you how to live your life. You're figuring it out on the fly. And I don't know. It's good that you have recognized healthier habits. And I think I have as well. But there was a dark time where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. All I have is food and a little bit of sleep, and that's about it.
Right. And as you're talking, you helped me to kind of connect the dots, how it's related with the depression, with the food addiction, and then like not sleeping. I was like, maybe it was almost like a light bulb went off. I forgot when, but it's like, maybe if I went to bed a little earlier, I wouldn't eat as much.
Yeah.
And so, because I remember I had a meal, I forgot what day it was, but I had a meal around 10. I was going to bed close to 12, and I was feeling very hungry. And usually, like, you know, I would stay up a little bit later because on Fridays, I'm off on Fridays. So on Thursday, sometimes I stay up later. But when I recognized that hunger was kind of kicking in, I was like, let me go to bed before I make a bad decision. And so I went to bed without overindulging that day.
Yeah, I think that's when I really started to get the handle on my own, like, unhealthy relationship with food, as I started going to bed at like a reasonable hour towards the end of high school. And I was like, wow, this like senior year of high school is so much better. I go to bed around 10 and I don't eat, you know, a bagel at 1 a.m. and I feel better the next day.
Exactly. And what you're pointing out here is that health is interrelated. Like as we're getting our sleep, we'll make healthy food choices. As we're making healthy food choices, sometimes we'll feel better emotionally and mentally. So it's all like just interrelated.
Yeah. When you started becoming healthier, did you like get really excited about waking up to eat like your first meal of the day? Was that a thing for you? Because that was for me.
Not for me, and only because I've just never been like a big breakfast eater. Like my stomach don't open up to like after 10. But no, that wasn't the case though.
That's funny because I remember going to like the first year of college and being like, I'm going to wake up early when they're making pancakes in the dining hall. And I would like get there, eat the pancakes, and then pretty much take a nap the rest of the day. But I thought that was healthier than like eating till 1, 2, 3 in the morning the night before.
Right. I get that.
Have you talked to your counselor about food addiction or any like counselor in the past?
Man, come to think of it, I don't think I've ever brought up food addiction. I think I, would bring up my weight, but I never talked about how, from time to time, depending on how bad, depression or emotional mental health is, that I may, kind of overindulge in food. So thank you for bringing that up. That's the next thing I'm going to talk to him about.
Yeah, I feel like it could be helpful. I haven't talked about it in my own therapy, but I think I had one therapist who was like, do you want to talk about, your high school past and not eating right? And like she kind of alluded to it. And I was like, no, definitely not. And I just shut it down. But I think it would help to like, air it out for a session, see how it goes. Yeah,
because I'm really appreciative of this podcast because I've never really openly spoken about it. With different things in mental health, there's like a stigma about it, and it's like I'd be more open to talk about the depression, but not as open to talk about the food addiction. So I'm glad that she's kind of like in a very nice way pulling this out of me, so I can like bring this up to my counselor. So thank you, Michelle. Appreciate you.
Yep. I mean, thank you for being open, Paul. I appreciate it because you said you wouldn't mind talking about it, so you're doing half the work.
Exactly.
Because it's a weird thing, especially in America. I feel like people don't really talk about like food or health the way that other countries do. Like we kind of push it to the side in America. So it's good to be able to talk a little bit more honestly about it.
Yeah, most definitely, because we have like a, overabundance over here. And so as, I say this respectfully, but as other countries are worried about being malnourished, we're over here worried about being obese. And so.
Yeah. Or just not being aware of our own state of health, or like if we are obese, or if we're like high cholesterol, like people don't always take the time to learn how their bodies are doing.
Exactly. Our bodies are so unique, like all these different diets and fads, whether it's keto or vegan and all of that. Some works for some and others work for others. And so our body, our health is very, need to be very personalized, because as I've talked on my show before about self-care, I would bring other people on to talk about their routine. I'll talk about mine, but I would encourage a listener, like self-care looks different. Like what stresses another person out may relax another person. Like other people like the adult coloring books. I don't. And so I guess I say that to say this: do what works for you. Create the time and space to really think through what are the things that put you in a good place mentally and emotionally, and do that.
Yeah, like you were saying, you try to get a little bit of sunlight every day. It's such a basic, like, human need that we don't really think about, especially during a pandemic. We really need sunlight and like those basic check marks, like drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, because otherwise your body can't function. Right. And especially like with the daylight savings, where the days are shorter, and how you hear about such things as situational awareness. SAD. I forgot what the acronym stands for. Seasonal affective disorder.
Yes, that, and like the holiday blues, and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's related to the shorter days and the lack of sunlight. And so knowing that, I try to be preemptive and like, all right, I need to, get outside before it gets 5 o'clock and it's like super dark outside. Yeah, no, that's so true. I need to be better about that too. And I'm in California, where like we're supposed to be in sunshine all the time, and then I never really take advantage of it. I gotta leave my apartment. That's normally how it is. Like we, as humans, we tend to take the things that we're comfortable with for granted. Like Houston, I love living in Houston, but it wasn't until my wife's brother and sister-in-law came to town that we actually went to like some of these restaurants that we've heard about and always been wanting to go to, because we kept saying, oh, we'll do it. But since they was only here for a certain amount of time, it was like a sense of urgency. So it's crazy how that works. Yeah, sometimes like a visitor or some family visiting will like get you out of your house, be like, no, we're going to go like experience the town and the city you live in. So that's good. You like went out and did something, Yes, it was fun. And that's part of my self-care routine. Like my wife and I, we love adventure. We love to travel, whether it's road trips. We love trying different food and just going to different places, put the GPS in and just go. And so that really brings us a lot of joy. We love traveling and eating. Yeah, which is kind of, I'm sure you're missing it now when we can't really travel. Yes, that was, because usually every Thanksgiving since we've been married, so like 2 Thanksgivings, we would go to Vegas. And I asked my wife, I say, hey, we got the points for it, like as it relates to flights and hotels. You still want to go? And she didn't feel as comfortable this year for obvious reasons. And so this is going to be our first Thanksgiving not being out of town. But it's not a super let down, because we're still going to see our family. So just in case they listen, I want them to know that I love them and I'm looking forward to seeing them. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think it's better to be cautious, especially because like the pandemic is just getting worse right now. So It's good to like not travel if you don't have to, or, push your Vegas trip back one more year and just do it over again in 2021. Exactly. So yeah, better to play it safe. I agree. So let's talk about depression. Switch to a lighter topic. Are you experiencing like depression or symptoms of depression right now? Right now, no. Yeah, or lately, no. No, like I remember like the biggest bout was in 2011, and then I had a bout in 2014, and then a smaller bout when I moved to Texas. As you can kind of see the trend when it's like new places, I kind of like, go into a shell, so to speak. But the latest one will probably be the first week of the pandemic. I'm the type of person where I believe in to-do lists and planners and post-its and just kind of having all these plans laid out. And COVID showed me that I'm not in control. And so it really just threw me off. Like that first week when they sent us home, every day felt like the same day. I don't even know what the day was, whether it was Monday or Saturday, but every day felt like the same thing because I didn't realize how certain things that I do on certain days, like, oh, this is okay, I went to church today, so I know this is Sunday. Or we watch Monday Night Football, so we know that this is Monday. And just like those things wasn't there, so I felt kind of lost and a little depressed. And because I love what I do as a pastor, like shepherding people and teaching and preaching God's word to them. But being away from those things, I'm like, man, what I'm going to do with my life? And so that was the last time I kind of faced it. And that's when I made sure I got my visits in with my counselor and just, got heavy on the self-care. But that was the last time I kind of faced like a depression.
Yeah. And that was it really short-lived? If it was only the first week of the pandemic, that sounds like pretty miraculous to not stick with depression the whole pandemic. Because I've been like super sad lately and also feeling that sense of like every day is the same day. Like, what do we have to look forward to? So were you kind of like snapped out of it pretty quickly back in March?
Yeah, it lasted, I think like I remember writing in my journal, like the first 10 days, I was just feeling really bummed out, and then went to the counseling, and then, once again, heavy on the self-care, whether it was the sunlight, the steps, getting to sleep, doing things that bring me joy, and I kind of bounced out. But in all honesty, like this year, and this is part of life, it's been like a roller coaster. Like I wouldn't say as far as like depression, but still like some days where you just down because you're like, man, if the pandemic wasn't here, I would be doing this, so I would be doing that, and you just get kind of down. And because really depression, I remember writing a research paper on it, once again coming from an amateur point of view, but one of the quotes that really stuck out to me, Michelle, it says that depression is like the common code of life. In other words, we all go through it, just at different times and different degrees. And also in a research paper, I learned that depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're the extrovert that loves to do this, or you're the strong friend, or the friend that makes other laugh. Depression doesn't discriminate. Yeah.
What were you writing the research paper for?
It was on depression. It was when I was in seminary. I wrote one on depression, specifically how college students face depression. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. It is really like a walk of life, and also shows you how, I guess, like in tune with your emotions you are. If you like, you're depressed, you're sad, and you're able to like categorize that, I feel like it shows that you are paying attention to what your mind and body are telling you.
Exactly. Just kind of being, I can sum it up no better. You said it exactly well.
And also the fact that you were even back in March, you said you were keeping a journal. I keep a journal all the time, and I feel like it helps to look back and be like, this week really was not great, and this is why. And, knowing like you're processing your feelings in real time, and to be able to look back and be like, that's where I was at that point in time, and I've either gotten better or worse, and the reasons why, because it's all there on paper, because you're being honest about yourself in the journal.
Right. And I'm just learning from you as we doing this conversation. But what would you say is your favorite thing about the journaling process? I'm just curious to know your thoughts.
I think I like the quiet reflection that it gives me. Just being able to like do something on my own and sit with my thoughts uninterrupted for a period of time. That really helps me like feel like a person and feel like I know myself a little bit better.
I love that so much, because I've done more journaling this year. And just like you said, I agree, too, that usually I would do, like, let's say I did one in 2019, and the first week of 2020, I remember reading my 2019 journal, and it was just so cool just looking back and seeing just kind of the ebbs and flow of life, and how maybe this week I thought the world was going to end. Then 2 weeks later, that thing got better. I journaled differently this year. It's been different journals each month, but it's like still one journal. I started out calling it the COVID Chronicles. And so I would just kind of, I know.
It's a good name. It's a good name.
The COVID Chronicles. I'm what's the word I'm looking for? Publish that one day when I get famous. But I switched it up in August. I did something called a joy journal. And so I literally, for those 31 days, my birthday was in August, and it was like my 31st birthday. I turned 31 on the 31st. So it was like my golden birthday. And so I was like, let's do something
Happy
different.
belated.
Thank you. Hey, still celebrating. And every day I would just write down what brought me joy. And in all honesty, Michelle, that took a lot of focus and discipline and intentionality, because as I'm saying, this brought me joy. Part of me is like, this coworker got on my nerves, or, you know, just insert anything that I wanted to kind of like vent about. And I'm so looking forward to reading it. I'm saying that's my Christmas present to myself, to read my joy journal in August. And I tried something different in October. I did like a productivity journal, and I would write down what made me feel productive. And I'll just say the joy journal works a lot better than a productivity journal.
I mean, I myself am a big to-do list person, so I feel like I kind of get wrapped up in productivity too often. So it's nice to have something like a joy journal, or something like, let's focus on the positivity in my life. Like having that different mindset, that could really benefit, I feel like, everybody. That's something I'm going to try myself.
Yes, I'm trying to get better at that too. Like, I need to find a rhythm of this, but like to celebrate the wins of the week. Because a lot of times, like, all right, I've finished everything on my to-do list. Let's move on to the next thing. And nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong with that. Excuse me. But I feel like we should pause, not rest on our laurels, but we should pause and celebrate the wins that we have before we move on so fast to the next thing. Because in America and this Western society and this culture, it's all about hustle and bustle, and let's move on to the next thing, and we conquered this and we conquered that. But let's celebrate the good things that, you know, God has allowed us to accomplish. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you deserve it. Especially if you've like been making strides and being productive, you should take pride in what you've accomplished.
Most definitely.
That's awesome. Just another, I wonder about the depression. Did you ever see counseling for it? And did you ever like find out what the cause of it? Like, was it really just a life change, a change of scenery, or was it like a chemical imbalance? Did you ever get to the root of what was causing it?
Yeah, I know the one that was the most traumatic for me in 2011. It was like a couple of triggers, and it's I don't want to say crazy, but it's unique how I look back on it now, and I was able to recognize the triggers now, but not when I was in it. But one of the things was I had some friends that I did ministry with, that we started a college ministry together, and they just kind of like left. We had this like big service plan, and it was like no shows, and so that friendship kind of ended. And then I experienced a breakup. I didn't really date that much in high school, so this was like my first breakup. I was like, oh, ouch, rejection hurts.
Yeah. Oh my God, the first one's the worst.
I know. And it's like, you know, just because you experience it at like a quote unquote later age, like the feelings are still there. But on top of all that, the thing that really kind of pushed me over the edge, so to speak, is I graduated high school in 2007, which means that I should have graduated college, quote unquote, should have, in 2011. Well, I took a victory lap. And before that victory lap, I remember going to the graduation. And I'm just going to keep it real. I walked out of there in tears, because I was like, I should be down there receiving my diploma. But here I am behind in life. I'm late. And once again, using quotations, because I feel like there's this false sense of a time clock. You know, if you get your degree at 21 or 30, it doesn't say how long it took to get your degree. It doesn't say, hey, this person graduated and it took him 10 years. The fact is that you got it, but that's another story for another day. But those things all together put me into like a real depression. That was my first time I went into Christian counseling, and, you know, I forgot what all he talked about. Just remember, he really helped me out. And once again, I guess the best thing I can describe therapy, I saw this meme. I love memes. Yes, it's like
enlighten me. I know so little about memes. Please tell me.
Oh, memes are like these pictures, and they have like words, and it's like, oh, it makes you laugh or makes you think. And this particular one was the person that was receiving the counseling. It would show like a picture of in their head, and it's like a lot of yarn strings just so tied up together, really messy. But on the other side of the picture is the counselor, and as the person is talking, and the counselor is kind of helping them to kind of unravel all these things and kind of like to connect the dots. And I feel like that's what therapy does. Like I go in with all these thoughts, and as I'm talking about it and processing it, they kind of guide me along the way. And I'm like, oh, and so yeah, that was when I would say like the most traumatic depression, in my humble opinion. But I didn't get that far where anybody said it was like a chemical imbalance. I haven't seen like a psychiatrist. I only seen like licensed counselors.
Yeah. Because I feel like the same way when I first felt like the pit of depression, I feel like I was like 13. I was pretty young, but it was the worst the first time. And it was like the hardest to deal with that first time. And that was also when my food addiction really flared up and I would like binge eat for no reason at weird hours of the day. But that first time I remember like getting through it without therapy because I was a kid and I like kind of just like was sad and waited it out. And I did like turn to exercise a little bit, and then I eventually started talking more to like people at school, and I got a new friend group. But in the beginning it was like so hard, it felt like the worst thing in the world. And I've been depressed since, like in bouts similar to you, but it's never been like, I've always, ever since that first time, I've been like, I know how to deal with this, it will get better. Just right now it's not the best.
Yeah, that's such a good and healthy outlook on that you can kind of recognize it, like, all right, I know how this feels, here we go again, but I know that it gets better.
Yeah. And I've seen one psychiatrist and she diagnosed me as depressed, but I remember I went to her for something else and I was defiant. I was like, I am not depressed. So even when I like got diagnosed as depressed, I was like, I don't feel like hearing this right now. So you really have to be like open to seeking help and like hearing what people have to say. Because at that time I wasn't open to it. So it just kind of set me back further. So everyone's journey is different.
That's such a good thought. Like in our mental and emotional health journeys, we got to be open to the opinions and the input of others and kind of like humble ourselves that, if a professional says this about us, like, all right, instead of me speaking to myself personally, because I was the same way, instead of me like being in denial, I was like, all right, let's go past this denial and let's get like to the root issue of it. Because I'm a man of faith. And so I work in the church, and there's not only a stigma about mental health in the society, but also in church. And sometimes it's over spiritualized. They would say, well, I don't want to just characterize the whole church, but some churches out there may say, well, you're struggling mentally because of, sin in your life. I just feel like there's a misunderstanding of mental health. A person could be, walking the straight and narrow, and yet there's just a chemical imbalance that they had no control over. And so that's why I really believe in counseling. Like I said, I'm a man of prayer, but I believe in counseling. A story that I tell, like, if I have a headache, Michelle, I'm going to pray about it. I'm a man of faith. But if the headache continues, I'm going to pray on my way to getting some Advil.
I was going to say, do you pop a Tylenol at some point, or do you just keep praying?
Man, I'll pop a Tylenol or Advil. And to be honest with you, if that headache continues, I'm going to see a professional. So the same way that God blesses us with surgeons and dentists and nurses to help us with our physical ailments, he blesses us, I believe, with therapists and psychiatrists and counselors to help us with our mental and emotional ailments as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very rational way to look at it, because you don't want to, if it's your example of the church overgeneralizing to say like, oh, you must have a sin that you have to atone for, that's overgeneralizing. You're not actually listening or trying to find out what the root of the problem is. You're just kind of like giving me a throwaway phrase like, oh, go find your sin. It's like, no, I'm sad because of these reasons.
I know,
so it's good. You turn to prayer as a tool, but then you can also reach out to a therapist, a counselor, a professional to seek further help.
Right, because I don't think like faith and science are like in opposition towards each other. And so with my faith, I pray. With the science and medicine, I take the medicine. And you're exactly right. I had to be careful of this, that I don't over spiritualize, because with college students who I particularly work with, they talk about different things. And I just think we got to be careful in the church that we don't just say, hey, feel better, or pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Because not to be too graphic, but let's say Sally gets into a car accident and Sally loses her legs. What right person is going to go up to Sally and say, hey, just feel better? and we're going to get her the help that she needs. And so the same way when somebody kind of loses it, going along with that metaphor, loses it mentally or emotionally, I don't just need to go up to them and say, hey, feel better, or hey, cheer up. No, I need to like process, help them, from an amateur as much as I can, help them like to process that, then maybe refer them to a psychiatrist or a counselor, etc. So yes, we got to be careful that we don't just, throw out these trite cliche statements and say, hey, feel better. No, let's talk about this.
Yeah, don't just tell me to smile more. Like, actually ask how I'm doing and take the time to listen. I feel like listening is like a huge part of it. Just being there for someone that could really help, like, a huge amount. Just being like, what's wrong? Like, tell me about your day. Giving them uninterrupted time to vent, to listen. That's like a huge thing for a lot of people who feel lost or like their mental health is suffering.
Most definitely. I remember I was a camp counselor, camp leader. They want us to use the term counseling. I was a camp leader, and we had one-on-one time with each camper. And I just asked this guy, he was a senior in high school. I asked him 2 questions, and he talked for like 45 minutes. And at the end of that, he was like, thank you so much. Yeah. And in my mind, I was like, all I did was listen. But then I was like, all I did was listen, because you said it exactly right, Michelle, that the gift of listening is so important. Sometimes there's been sometimes where I would go to my counselor, and as I'm talking, it would be like a light bulb. It's like, oh, and he doesn't even have to say anything. So once again, that gift of listening and being able to kind of vent and just like process out loud is so beneficial, in my opinion, to our mental and emotional health.
Mm-hmm. And that's great that you can provide that service, like as a camp leader, or probably now as a pastor. It's a huge advantage that we don't do enough in society these days. So I'm glad you're, checking in with people and asking how they are. It's something we should do more as a society.
I agree. I'm trying to do what I can in my small corner of the world.
Yeah, that's awesome, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Those are all my hard questions. You want to spin a random question on the wheel?
Let's do it. I love that.
Cool. See where it lands. Okay. We got career. How is your career going?
It's kind of related. We went from none of hard questions to back to the hard question. It's kind of related.
Especially because we dabbled into it a little earlier.
I know, right? It kind of reminds me of the Oreo story. Just it's
or
a
like
lot of.
You can also talk like in the future. Where do you want your career to go?
Okay. I'm really content like where I am now, being a college and young adult pastor. I love having a chance to teach God's word on a weekly basis and to really kind of shepherd and mentor these young students at such an informative time. And then related to career, I guess it's still a hobby now, but I've been podcasting. And so that's been fun, meeting new people. And I like to say I went to Google University and YouTube University and just kind of just like submerging myself in like, all right, what does it look like? Or Google things like how to podcast better, or how to be a better interviewer, or how do I market it? Like, I feel like I have a good product. Like, how do I market and get more people to listen? And so I guess career wise, kind of next, I see myself writing a book. One of the taglines in my podcast is like from surviving to thriving. And I feel like there's a book in me that I want to talk about surviving to thriving. I believe in holistic health. And so like the 5 pillars would be spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally, and relationally. So that's a good question. I need to write that down. I need to start writing on this book.
Yeah, that's a good tag. I think I saw it on your Instagram, surviving to thriving. I like that.
Yes. Thank you.
That's awesome. I feel like it's good to have goals, like where you want to be, wherever, however many years down the road, just so you can envision it and make that a reality someday. And I would love to write a book also. I feel like that's a great goal. It's a huge achievement to like write and publish something.
Right. And so since we follow each other on Instagram, we can keep each other accountable and like check in like, hey, have you started your outline yet? No. Have you? Yes. And so let's keep each other accountable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I believe you can do it. I feel like you have a great idea.
Thank you. And I believe in you too. And I want to purchase it. So yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I wrote short stories and like fiction and stuff like that before I got into podcasting. So maybe someday I'll write like a fiction novel or something like that.
Oh, that is so cool. It's all the creativity and artistry. I like that.
Yeah. I just figured I kind of stopped on that trajectory, thinking like, who reads books anymore? Like, it's not the way of the future, but I still love books when I do have time to read.
Right. I felt that way too when everything was, especially this year, everything was going digital and all this and that. Like, you know what? I'm just going to write it. It'd be nice to say, you know, I'm an author or I have a book under my belt. So regardless of where technology goes, let's do it.
Yeah. And not worry so much about like what's going to happen once it's out there. Just write it and don't worry about what's going to happen.
I know that's a huge thing too. Just kind of, you know, give it my best, then leave the results up to God and don't worry about it.
Yes. Letting go of the need to always know what the future holds.
Yes.
All right. Let's spin one more. Maybe it'll be more light for you.
Let's see.
Okay. This one comes up a lot lately on the podcast. Gratitude. What are you grateful for?
Man, kind of related to the last question. I am so grateful for podcasting. Once again, because I'm in this podcasting world, I've had the opportunities to be on the other side of the mic, like right now, and be interviewed. I've met new people. I've had a conversation with people that I would probably not normally have a conversation with because of podcasting. And it's so fulfilling. And I feel like you probably can relate to this. It's almost like therapeutic. I'll be in my closet recording this episode and I'm like, all right, this is my contribution to the world. And just feels so good about it. I come out of the studio, as I call it, just on like this high, like, all right, I made a contribution to society.
Yeah. And you feel like you've fulfilled something that you wanted to get done. Like you had that interview, you did something creative, you're helping reach out to your community of listeners. It feels like you're really like taking a tangible step to achieve something great.
Exactly. And like you've finished something, you completed something, you put your creativity into this and you produced it. And so it just makes me fulfilled, as you can tell from me smiling as I'm talking about it.
That's awesome. And I didn't mean to drag you out of your creative space in the closet into your living room, but I think the living room background's beautiful. So I'm glad we turned out with the Christmas tree background.
Yeah, me too. It is better. It adds more joy. I love Christmas. I love Thanksgiving too, for those out there. But I just a year like 2020, let's break the rules. If Christmas lights makes you feel better and putting a tree up, do it.
Yeah, let's tap into whatever outlets of joy we have available.
Most definitely.
So Paul, we've come to the end. What would you like to tell the audience and promote your podcast? Tell us where to find you.
Before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much just for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate you.
Of course, it's been such a joy, to use your word, talking to you and getting to know you. And I feel like you've taught me a lot about how I could get a better rein on my own mental health.
Because like I've done other interviews. I've done a few. Like I'm not like, oh, he's so sought out. No, I've done a few and I've enjoyed every one. But like the question you asked maybe is more vulnerable than I have before, and I appreciate that. Okay, enough rambling as a preacher. Let me answer your question.
Vulnerability is important. We should have more vulnerability.
I agree with that. So my podcast is called Real People, Real Talk. And wherever you are listening right now, you can find a Real People, Real Talk right there. Once again, I want to encourage and empower each listener to be and do all that God has called them to be and do, and to move them from surviving to thriving spiritually, physically, financially, relationally, and emotionally. So that's like my podcast in a nutshell. And the last thing I would say is, don't postpone your joy. It's kind of a thing with me, joy, trying to do better at that. But don't postpone your joy. Oftentimes, we wait to the next thing and we say, you know what, we're going to be happy then. And just give a few quick examples. Sometimes it's a college student that says, you know what, when I graduate, I'm going to be happy. Or maybe it's a single person that says, you know, when I get married, I'll be happy. Or maybe it's the married person say, you know, when I find somebody else, I'll be happy. And so all these things, it probably wasn't the best example, but the point being is, don't postpone your joy. Like, I'm not going to wait till the summer when my wife is off and we can travel more. Oh, we're going to have all the joy then, or wait till the weekend. No, I'm going to try to find joy in every single day. So to those that's listening, don't postpone your joy. Find joy in every single day.
Yeah. And I would also, to tag on to that, do Paul's idea and vent about your joy. Just like the next time someone asks you how you are, just start ranting about how happy you are about X, Y, and Z. It's a good way to mix it up.
Exactly. And then record how you feel after you've done that. Yeah.
And then you can remember that next time you're feeling down. Well, thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure talking, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yes, likewise. I'll keep up with you on social media.
Yeah, we got to write those books. All right. Talk to you later.